similar enough to actually to Meath against Tyrone. Like their fans must have been coming away from Portlaoise without a qualm. There wasn't anything there that they didn't throw at Roscommon, and sometimes you just come up short. It was blood and thunder, championship, the heat, everything. It was an unbelievable game of football. The amount of kick passing that was in the first game in Portlaoise compared to the second was
like night and day.
Yeah, completely. And I think the penalty was a huge moment. Huge moment. If they could have got ahead, I know a couple of years ago they played Westmeath right before they played us last year. They played Westmeath in a qualifier, and with 10 minutes to go, they were put down to 14 early in the first half. With 10 minutes to go, they dropped everyone behind the ball and played a counter-attacking game. And I reckon they were set up to maybe try and do that for the last 10 minutes against Armagh or against Roscommon. And the problem for them was they just weren't ahead, as in. And if they could have gotten ahead, they maybe could have implemented that, and they did it so successfully against Westmeath last year.
And Clare as well, the weekend before last. Like, I mean, it was once they got in front, they weren't letting up. But let's just remind each other of the graphic, remind everyone of the graphic that we had up on screen last week. Here it is again. Kieran McGeeney in the qualifiers. It was an 86% win ratio, 25 from 29. That's now 25 from 30 after the weekend's defeat. Like, is there such thing as being a qualifier manager?
Well, I think what he is he's a very pragmatic manager, right? So he's a guy who realises, and he doesn't truck with this whole idea of, okay, I play a certain way. Like, I mean, it's really interesting what Michael was saying, because there was a massive swing in that game. Vernon came forward, a bit of a sloppy hand pass, which went over one of the Armagh fellas. Roscommon counter-attacked, got the goal. And it was a massive swing in momentum. Even, I think it was around 8 points to 11 or something at that stage. And it went 1-8 to 11, something like that. And then there was, so there was some small little things. And I agree, McGeeney is the type of fella, and I heard someone mention this, that Armagh may be better suited to actually playing teams outside of Ulster, because they don't particularly like coming up against, say a Fermanagh type defence, who are majorly back in there, 13 or 14 players behind the ball, because they are quite a free-flowing team when they get going. And they have 5s and 7s who like to kick points as well as their inside fellas, and they've scorers all over the pitch. Like, it was amazing to see different fellas coming up yesterday with a point. So they're a team that can play it, and I think he's trying to hone in on this idea that, well, yes, I play my style to get ahead, and then if needs be, we'll close up shop. So he's pragmatic about that. He doesn't just say, no, we'll keep going, and if we're 4 ahead of you, we'll be 12 ahead of you. He says, if we're 2 or 3 up, well, then that's fine. And that's why I think when it comes into the qualifiers, he does all of his homework, obviously, on the opposition, which every manager does, but he really suits the style and says, okay, this is how we can go with this. And I think he alters his style to a certain degree for the opposition. And I think they were unlucky, unlucky. I think they were very unlucky.
The first half, especially, as you were saying, like, they played so well in the first half, and to go in 2 points down was so tough on them, because, I mean, Mernon was unmarkable at full forward. Rory Grugan was kicking points from everywhere, and you just felt that they needed a boost of being 2 or 3 points up, and maybe then changing the style in the second half. But in fairness to Roscommon, they got the scores at crucial times. Enda Smith stood up with 2 unbelievable goals. But even before that, when they brought it back to a point, he picked up a ball probably 10 yards outside the 45, went past 2 or 3 players and drew a foul on the 21. And from that, Roscommon kicked 1-2. I saw afterwards, I was watching as all their fans, flew onto the pitch, to the detriment of the Tyrone warm-up, actually. Not that you'd know it, but I saw, what struck me was Lee McHale came out and he went over to Enda Smith, and Enda was kind of waiting for maybe a bit of a hug, and what he got was maybe 2 or 3 pushes in the chest. And what it looked like to me was him saying to Enda Smith, like, that's what you can do. That's what you can do. He said, that's what, when you stick your mind to it, that's what you can be, that player. And it really struck home to me that, if they want to really have a mark on the Super 8s, he needs to be at his best.
Donegal in the height, I mean, that's a huge opportunity for them.
I think it's a Roscommon thing. I think if Michael could go around to every single player.
You can see on screen there Michael chatting to Enda. Yeah. It looks borderline confrontation.
Well, I think I get the impression, because I watched him a good bit last year in the qualifiers. I did a good few games for News Talk, and I got that sense. Michael actually stands right up where the forwards are, and he just watches the forwards. He stays, and he's always cajoling them and talking to them and everything from the sideline. But you get that sense from Roscommon that they kind of need that dig in the chest a couple of times to really, because you know, as a good Armagh, where if it wasn't for Smith, who McGeeney will look back on it and go, oh, a few lapses of conversation or the communication and discussion around of who have we got, where's the players, because 3 or 4 times we were just caught ball watching Roscommon fellas. Smith for the goal, he just slipped in behind. We mentioned the Vernon one. So just there was a couple of things where McGeeney would look back and go, you know, we actually could have slipped that, but at the same time McStay will be delighted, because there was a few moments in that game where they looked out on their feet, and the likes of Smith just dragged them back into it, and they kicked some unbelievable points. Like, I mean, unbelievable raking scores, great confidence, you know.
I don't think I've ever seen a performance like Mark Shields as well.
Yeah.
With the wing back from Armagh, started at wing half back, went in man marking job on Carl Craig, who was causing so many problems to the Armagh full back line. Started the second half as a wing forward, and then ended up in the full forward line and got a goal and won 4 frees. I mean, I've never, like, is there anybody else in the country can do that? Go from being a tight marking fullback to a free flow and full forward in the space of 20 minutes. Incredible. And Armagh, while they'll be disappointed, they've found a lot of players this year in the absence of what they had last year, and that can only be good for them going into next year's Division 2. That Division 2 is a minefield next year. And I think Roscommon could shock a few people in the next couple of weeks.